Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniature. We are going to take a look at the latest SNAA 1/144th kit. This is the Titan Greatsword Tristan. So, I thought Tristan himself looked a bit like the most recent 1/100th Flame Lord kit from SNAA, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And one thing I'll say about the SNAA kits, having built quite a few of them, sometimes remembering to post them, maybe even putting them up in somewhat sequential order, is that with every consecutive figure that they've released, I feel like they've stepped up the quality of their model game. I wasn't a big fan of their early models in terms of, I don't know, stature, posing, joint strength. Things got kind of wobbly and not very pleasant at times. And with each kit that they've put out, and especially considering the prices on these things, I felt that there have been steady increases in levels of quality each and every time. So I am really looking forward to the Tristan here. And I mean, honestly, it's a nice looking kit. And I'm glad to see that even though we are still kind of within the realms of the Gundam influence mobile suit designs, we are starting to see a lot more creative takes on that, and creators, designers, engineers, everybody branching out from the typical standard, 1-year war look of things, or at least the modern interpretation of 1-year looks of things. We all can't be beginning Gundam, modern Bandai kits. One thing that there is to say about the SNAA kits is they often do have a whole lot of nice little gimmicky weapon details. As you can see here, obviously, being the Greatsword Tristan, he has the appropriately named weapon that is absolutely gigantic. And to me, it's a bit of a nod to like the original Knight Gundam or SD Knight Gundam, the sword inside the shield, which I have always been a fan of. So that's kind of neat to see. I think it's that translucent cape that really gives off the Flame Lord vibes, but Flame Lord had just a ridiculous amount of giant flame effect parts anyways. So, it's a good sized kit box, isn't it? One thing to say is that as they've put out more and more of these, I feel there's been a steady increase in both the size and bulk and just overall complexity of the 1/144th kits that SNAA has put out. Some nice shiny gold pieces there. Your translucent effect parts. Various hands. Good size shield. Good size sword. That's just the blade right there. We are going to have to build the inner frame of the machine prior to building up the armor, but if it's anything like the last kit that they did, which the name is escaping me at the moment, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. That's the handle of the Greatsword. I don't know, looking at parts in bags doesn't do much for me, even though I'm the one doing it. The big deciding factor for me is often what's in here. Now, one thing I gotta say is I've actually really started to enjoy putting the decals on a lot of these kits. The SNAA ones tend to be pretty decent and not too much of a hassle in terms of getting them to stay in one place. While the instructions are in color and broken down by each subsection or sub-build, whatever you want to say, they are still in Chinese, but for the most part, it looks pretty straightforward. They're not going to give you a breakdown of which sprues or anything like that. That's always helpful, but again, it looks like actually similar to the last one that we did, you're going to build up, the inner frame, and then you're going to build all the armor on top of it. I wonder if the cloak or the cape or whatever is actually supposed to be attached to him at all times. Because looking at that backpack that you're going to build for it gives me that impression. So 2 swords and a shield with him. I like the colors, but to be honest, I feel like a lot of their kits tend to be of similar types with that kind of inner black frame with the off-white armor. I think it's the highlight colors that tend to make a difference. Hopefully with the next few, because they're always, you know, teasing something. And I gotta say, they're pretty quick with the turnaround on a lot of their kits. Hopefully we start to see a little bit variant option choices with the colors in the near future. I could actually kind of go for some more recolors. I know I got one of the recolors, I think it was the Galahad. The guy with the wings. I'll grab them for you guys and I'll show you. Anyway, I'll put it together. We'll see how it turns out. I'll grab some, hopefully, whatever SNAA kits I've still got laying around here that haven't made the trek to work, where the kids often seem to really enjoy them. So hopefully we'll have something to compare it to. So if you want to see it, you know the drill. Sit tight. Okay, we got the Tristan put together here. Plop. And I'm not going to waste your time and mine sitting there bending every joint and showing all the articulation on it, because that's not very exciting. And it's, well, movable, so that's a good thing. I feel like a lot of the joints aren't really limited by the armor. That is a concern oftentimes. But of all the SNAA kits I've built at this point, which is pretty much all of them, I gotta give this one credit that they are continuing to really refine the process of putting these kits together. And I gotta say, that's a good thing. I do like the fact that he's fairly stable, fairly thick legs. I'm not a fan of skinny legs on a mech to begin with, but for a kit, you know, it needs to be able to stand on its own 2 feet, and that's actually the case here. Of course, it helps when I'm getting him into some kind of a decent pose, and the more I look at it, the more I realize it really, really gives me an SD Gundam vibe. And I think part of that is because of the big sword, part of that shield with the blade in it as well, and even the fact that it has a very mobile suit-like style to him definitely is contributing to that. Taking a look at his big sword here. And the smaller one. And just because he's always handy, so you know what you're getting yourself into, the entry grade 1/144th. These are much taller, substantially taller I should say. Most of the SNAA kits are. Their 1/100th kits are gargantuan in comparison, something to be aware of, but I don't know, I still feel like the Fire Lord, which I haven't even posted, is probably an overall better kit. But again, you have limitations with the size and things you can mess around with, then you might not necessarily at this size either. So just because I have him handy, I have the Great X kit here as well. I was going to do a video on it once upon a time, never got around to it. And having them both in front of me now, I realize just how similar their color schemes are. And I feel like outside of the purple kit, that was the first SNAA model that I built, I wasn't too pleased with that one, but I feel like they've kind of played it pretty safe in terms of colors ever since. He doesn't have those pastel lime greens that the Fire Lord does, which, again, we'll have to show off one of these days. He's been sitting around here. He's not handy at the moment, so I can't really whip him out for you guys. Another one, I don't even remember what this one was called. This guy was an earlier kit, very angular, thin legs, and his sword seems to have fallen out of his hand as well, which is fun. But again, similar color schemes between all the kits. Not that that's a bad thing, but I feel like they're really going in with this whole Knights of the Round Table theme, and I don't think he was one of them. I think they had a guy with the big shields as well. But I feel like really this company, the more kits they put out, even if it's a bit derivative in terms of having that mobile suit style, but again, I'd argue that pretty much nearly all plastic model kits coming out of, well, everywhere these days tends to have that overtly mobile suit style to it. So that's not something that we can really, you know, criticize them for, I guess, too much. And some figures are a little bit more obvious in their designs than others. This guy was just a really cool kit. He's big, he's imposing, he's got those really cool wings. He also had these swords. I'm saying with a plural because there were two of them and now I can only find one, which were really neat looking, but they did not want to stay. They had just this little hole that was attached via a peg on the backpack, and they like to slide off, or at least one liked to slide off more than the other, and I guess that's why I don't have it now. Let's see if I can get his sword in his hand. One thing is the SNAA kits do tend to have very large weapons that they have difficulty in keeping in a solid pose. So obviously if you want that sword aimed up, yeah, his whole hand just came off, but that's more on me as well. I'll let you guys figure out the creative posing. I probably didn't push it in as badly or hard as I needed to, but yeah, he can hold it quite nicely. And, you know, there is articulation even in the cape on him in the back, which is kind of a nice plus. There is a contact point for either a stand or for the sword to attach, both on his back and underneath the cape. Right there. I don't think those are, you know, those are like little plugs. Interesting looking skirt armor. Something new. Haven't seen anything like that before. Overall, nice looking mech. Nice looking knight robot style kit. Same thing with his big axe friend here, who you're just going to have to really get creative to have him pose and hold that thing up. But honestly, my biggest knock, besides the choices of repetitive colors, is the fact that neither of these guys had a stand included. What a shame and a wasted opportunity. I mean, it's not like I don't have plenty of other stands, and they're all pretty much universal in terms of, you know, connection points. But it just would have been nice to have one included with these guys, you know? And they had one with the iron sickle. I don't remember if he had a special code name or if he was even one of the knights. And even that guy was a little bit different in terms of the colors. These guys are pretty similar, although the blues aren't exactly the same. It's more of a blue-gray, where it's a little bit more of a deepish blue. But still, you know, I'd like to see them kind of break out and get some really different colors for their next kit, which I'm sure they've already shown off teasers for. I can't remember what it was supposed to be called. I think it was another of the Martial Emperors. But honestly, for the price, under 30 bucks, US, I feel like that's a pretty decent kit for what you're getting. I mean, comparable to a Bandai one, if you like the aesthetic. I think that's also key. Me personally, big fan of the fantasy type stuff, so it's an easy purchase for me. Whereas I've been a little more hesitant over the years for the typical one-year war, actual military use mechs as time has waned on. So that's just my personal take. But, you know, in terms of build, it's kind of similar to a real grade. You've got the inner frame that you could possibly leave as is if you're into that. I'm not. And then you have to build all the armor pieces on. All of the SNAA kits have been built in that style. So that's nothing new. And that seems like that's something they're going to continue going forward. And that's fine. But overall, nice little kit. Impressed with what I got for the price. I have not put the decals on, but I gotta say, for the most part, the SNAA decals are pretty decent. I have done some, maybe I'll have to post pictures somewhere. I'm so tired of having to deal with social media stuff. I'll put them on Discord if anybody wants. And that's also a good excuse to plug the Discord, which we have the links to through the Patreon. Even if you don't want to subscribe, you can at least hit us up there and join us in random discussions. And at this point, I'm kind of just randomly going off topic. So that's probably my cue to wrap things up. So yeah. With that said, then, this has been High Lord Tamberley with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.